Welcome to The Other Side. Our conversation series features in-depth discussions with friends, artists, collaborators, and unique personalities within the Bass Nectar universe. Available at www.unlocktheotherside.com. Thanks for joining us. Today I am visiting with my dear friend Raul, better known as 6BLOCC, 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 6BLOCC.
Keep it nice and easy.
When it drops and it's just like
Yeah,
because when it drops and it's just like because when it drops and it's just like because when it drops and it's just like
yeah, so restart from scratch. Restart from scratch. Yeah, so restart from scratch. Restart from scratch.
Brand new shit.
Keep it nice and easy.
Today I am visiting with my dear friend Raul, better known as 6BLOCC, although I first discovered him when he was going by RAW back in the crazy jungle days. How you doing?
I'm doing good, man. Just right here in my living room studio where I like it the best.
I love it.
Yeah, I've moved my studio around from all these different areas. I even rented out a spot, but nothing has sounded better and feels better than just waking up and coming to the living room and everything is right here.
Sounds warm and cozy,
yeah,
and like the perfect place to be creative.
Yeah, I like my setup. It's a really basic setup, but this is where I am.
Tell me a bit about your current studio.
It's just a PC running Cubase. I have the complete MIDI controller that I love, like mainly for the lights. Yeah, but just now I just like to keep it nice and easy. Like I like to knock stuff out really quick, so software is the way to go for me now.
And how did you get started in DJing? Could you kind of walk me back in time and just tell me a bit about what got you into turntablism or DJing or collecting vinyl?
Way back when I was a kid, let me see, I was like 12 and 13, and me and a friend, we started to mess around with his drum machines, and I think we also started to try to mix, but we just had one turntable and one tape deck.
Yes.
So we were trying to learn, with one turntable, because at the time having two turntables didn't make sense, because I didn't even know about mixers. I knew about the turntables, but I had no clue that you could connect two. And that wasn't until maybe 2 years later when I was 15 years old. But it all got started when I was a kid, and just messing around. I was always interested in music. In elementary school, I was in the drill team, and we did all the parades throughout Los Angeles.
That's so sick that you were in drill.
Oh yeah. So I think when I was 15, I started DJing. A lot of friends' parties, weddings, quinceañeras, backyard parties. And I became part of this group. We were called Modern Musique, and we used to actually put together a lot of shows. We put together a show with the Cover Girls that sold out within a few hours. We did a huge show that had NWA, Tone Loc,
holy shit,
Mellow Man Ace, and JJ Fad. We got JJ Fad for $50 because they were brand new.
Wow.
And I think we booked them a few weeks before they blew up. So it was those were the early days of my DJ career. And back then we were just doing it for fun. But also at the time, my childhood musically was great. I love the way I grew up, listening to rock first, and then hip hop, and then later on a little bit of reggae, house music, and techno, so I feel that my ears have been thoroughly saturated with a good variety of music, and now I love everything now, even country.
Wow. So what took you from the kind of party rocking freestyle DJing into, I guess, either electronic or rave scene, or how did you even think about that or witness that change? What did you call it back then, and what was that journey like?
For me, it was really gradual, and it was just like an evolution of what was happening through the record stores. And of course, I was always just in the hip-hop section and the dance section. But then there was a friend in high school, his name is Nazario. And me and all of my old school, high school buddies, we all say that he's the one, who first started to bring techno records and early house records to the parties. And back then we kind of considered him like the alternative guy that was kind of weird and different. He even dressed different, like he would dye his hair, and back then that was like, what the hell, you're crazy, And he brought over techno, and then gradually I started to listen to the records he played, and I liked the graphics. So yeah, like I just started to look mainly for the graphics on the covers of certain records. And back then in the early 90s, I started to go to DMC Records, Street Sounds, Prime Cuts, and a few other little hole-in-the-wall spots. And that's where I would really find all the good UK, German, Belgian dance, techno, and early breakbeat records.
Wow. And when you were kind of during that time, what did you know of genres, or was anyone at the record shop kind of like saying, hey, here's our house records, here's our techno? How did that kind of come around, your vernacular for understanding the different genres?
Back then, everything was just under techno. Like, there was house, and then there was techno. And then later on, like in 93, hardcore.
Yep.
And that was separate just because it was so intense. But in the beginning, it was just, I would just grab a big old stack and just go through them and basically just do research, like...
Oh, man.
Yeah, like...
That was a whole universe in itself, just fucking hanging out at the record store and digging through the crates.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't realize how much of an impact being there had on, like, my career, but...
Yeah.
Eventually, I started working there, like at Street Sound Records on Melrose. And then eventually I became the buyer for all the breakbeat stuff in jungle and later on hardcore.
Oh, yeah, I'm sure at that point your promo game became...
Oh, my God. Yeah, like those were the days, though. Like I would just live and breathe breakbeat music and jungle. And...
Well, tell me when you got, like, when did that happen? Because as you said, like... I remember when it was, just techno, and then techno and house, and then hardcore, and then it seemed like hardcore kind of led into jungle.
Yeah.
Is that right?
Yeah. I mean, like what it is that in the UK, the creation of jungle is kind of like a merge between techno and reggae bassline because a lot of the producers were black.
Oh, wow.
So they're just merging the stuff they grew up on with the new stuff happening, right? Techno at the time. So it was, for me, it was really gradual, and I think for them as well, it was just a really gradual growth into what became known as jungle. And jungle, to me, it becomes jungle once the technology allows it to become jungle. So like the Akai sampler.
And when was it that you kind of made the shift into producing, or was that kind of gradual as well?
Yeah, I mean, like when I was a kid, I would mess around, and like I had drum machines and synthesizers growing up. Like my first drum machine was called the Synsonic Drums, and I bought it at the mall somewhere.
Wow.
Yeah, and I've always had this little Yamaha CS01 keyboard that's great. It's like a sick little analog battery-powered keyboard, but like I still have that thing. But it does every... like it does sawtooth, sine wave, triangle, square wave. And back then I would have a little 4-track recorder, and I would recreate songs that I liked,
right,
like in order to kind of learn how to produce. And that was in the 80s. And then in the 90s, I kind of just did it for fun, and I really didn't, like, to be honest, like I didn't even get serious like until 2005 and 6 when I started to try to make dubstep. But up until that time, like between 97 and 2005, I was producing mainly jungle and like a little bit of hardcore.
And was that under RAW always?
Yeah, like that was under RAW as well as B-Boy 3000. And I was working mainly with a label called N2O. And I like working with them because they would just put out all of my good stuff, and they would press up a bunch of copies on colored vinyl.
Wow.
And they would like distribute them heavily. And for me, like, I just liked having my music out. Like, I didn't care about the money at the time because I was getting booked anyway.
Fuck yeah.
So I just liked the fact that this guy was just putting in all the work just to press vinyl, because like it wasn't easy. Like he had to, ship everything himself, and it was a lot, So like I would watch him, work basically all week, printing the records, going to the guy to, handle the color of the records. So it was a lot of work.
It was a tremendous amount of work, but back then it was a participation in the underground that felt so artistic. So whatever it was, like making a flyer at Kinko's or from every level of distro and promo and the rave events and promoting the DJs and record shopping, all that shit.
Yeah.
There was something like, sure, people were making money and trying to be professional, but kind of not really either. Like it was definitely about, the art and being a part of the scene.
Yeah.
As far as I remember. Same for you?
Yeah. I mean, for me, I was just happy DJing and playing out shows.
Right.
And so, like the reason why I say that I wasn't serious about it is because I really wasn't following the rules of like EQ and compression and volume. I was just making stuff and just recording it onto a DAT. But when I listened back, a lot of it, like the bass was too loud and the drums could have been cleaner.
Yeah.
But back then I was just making stuff that I just wanted to make, and like I didn't really think too far beyond that. But like around 2005 is when I started to really take the production a little bit more serious and play by the rules.
And that's when you kind of invented 6BLOCC?
Yeah. So 6BLOCC, I just, like for the past year, like I've thought about it, and I feel like I'm going through the same thing now that I went through in 2005, which is, it's like a gut feeling, It's like a gut feeling where something has to change, something like I need to do something else. But in 2005, drum and bass was becoming very, I guess, typical, and nothing was standing out because everything sounded the same. And I was like, is there anything else out there? And at the time I was working in Hollywood at my friend's studio, and one day I heard them playing some music in the first level, because I was in the second floor, and on the first floor I heard a bass line coming through the floor, and I was like, what are they listening to? And then I went down there, and they were playing a mix by Youngsta from the UK. It was a dubstep mix. And I remember I heard it, and I was like, that is pretty fucking sick. And I really...
Wow.
I just sat there just going, what the hell? Like, it's slow, but there's something in it, that's really cool. And so I started to try to copy what I heard. But then, of course, quickly my love of sampling started to kick in. And then I would just put in reggae stuff, which to me made perfect sense. I was like, it's fucking perfect.
Yeah, I mean, frankly, I know that a lot of the original, dubstep came from the two-step, which was also very drum and bass, influenced. And yeah, and then there was also, so it was kind of like folks working up in that faster tempo and then kind of like dropping it down. And then there was, of course, hip hop and mostly reggae or dub that was like right in the pocket already.
Yeah.
And kind of combining that. For me, I kind of came about it sideways because I was into not just breakbeats, but specifically, new school breaks, what they were calling it then. Mm-hmm. And so it was all like 130, 135, maybe 137.
Yeah.
And I remember maybe 2005 or 2006, Freak Nasty telling me like, dude, there's this shit called dubstep and it's blowing up. It's like all low ceilings, everyone's got their hood on, and people are just fucking nodding in unison to this like heavy, slow shit.
Yeah.
But when I tried making it, it was basically like taking my breakbeat tracks at 137, speeding it up to 140, and always staying really heavy with the drums and percussion. And I kind of didn't, had I come at it maybe more the way you came, I think I would have started off more in just like the surging low end. So yeah, is that kind of how it came for you, from like dub and from jungle, or?
Yeah, so the reason why I changed my name to 6BLOCC is because I felt like this is something totally separate from jungle and drum and bass. This is some other world. And I remember one of the first shows that I DJ'd at, even before I got to the venue, my friend Matty G from Santa Cruz was playing. And I remember walking up to the venue, and even before we were a block away, I could hear the bass. I was like, what the fuck? Like, I just remember thinking, this is fucking heavy shit. Like, and so, like, I just remember thinking, I love dubstep already, because it's just so fucking, the bass is, like, it was all about bass, you know, like, literally just the bass. And so when I started to make it, I had this scratch record by D Styles, I think it was, and on the record, there was a part that had a sample that says, the bass we create is heard from 6 blocks.
Oh, wow.
But then when I sampled it, I accidentally cut off the S on the blocks. But then when I played it back on my MIDI controller, as soon as I heard 6 block without the S, I was like, oh my God. And it was the same feeling that I had with REW. Like, the way I got REW was I was in a battle with J-Rock from the Beat Junkies, and I just brought out the Big Daddy Kane record, REW, and I started to scratch it during the battle. And as I'm scratching REW, the whole crowd is screaming it. And in that moment, I was like, that's me, I'm REW. I was like, yeah. And so the same feeling happened with the accidental, like, cutoff of the you know, 2 words, 6 blocks. But as soon as I cut the S off of blocks, there was something about the way it sounded, because it went 6 block, and it just sounded very like feet on the ground, you know. And for me,
yeah,
like,
it fucking punches.
Yeah, 6 block. I don't know. There's something about that. Yeah.
That's so crazy how the name came around. Was your production, you know, kind of at the level where you felt ready to flex and to, you know, play your own tracks mixed in with your favorite tracks, or was there still a little bit more learning curve, or were you just hitting it right away?
Yeah, like, luckily, I think, of course, in the beginning there was too much bass, but at the time it was okay because it was all about bass. So I kind of got away with Murder only because the bass lines were so delicious, you know?
Yeah, I remember, I don't know if it was intentional and you did this, around that time I was buying a lot less vinyl and mostly just trading MP3s or waves with other producers or friends or whatever. Yeah. And I'd always get these MP3s by 6BLOCC or was 6BLOCC Remix or whatever, and it was always, everything was all caps. Like, no matter what, it was always 6BLOCC all caps, title all caps. Yeah. And I just remember there was something, it was not every tune, but like the ones I really locked in on, I couldn't figure out why your bass, so I really appreciated always how simple, even strong and heavy, but simple the drums were, and how you would let the bass pulse or hit and just be its own fucking thing, even if it was just a boom, 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 boom. There's no fucking hi-hat even interrupting it. It's just that fucking repetitive tube, you know, marked, bookended by a kick and a snare or whatever. And all my favorite early 6BLOCC tunes were just like that, like a freight train of sub, but it wasn't messy, like all, you know, 50 to 90 hertz just leaking out. It was tight. So I don't remember ever hearing your shit and thinking like, oh wow, this doesn't sounds like it has so much bass. Like, I was always like, fuck, how is he getting it so tight?
I think, like, back then, and like I still use this, but like Camel Crusher is like my favorite saturator for bass, you know, because quickly with a few little twists of the knobs and you're good to go. Like, yeah, it's all about Camel Crusher for the bass, because it just makes the bass translate over all kinds of different speakers.
Do you like do it to the entire signal, or do you split up multiband the signal somehow and apply the Camel Crusher to just?
You know, yeah. Back then, I think I was splitting a lot. Like now, like I tend to not split because now I'm using the mix to blend. Like I use the mix knob to blend in the dry and the wet. But back then, I always did the sub separate from the distorted signal.
Same.
Yeah.
Do you remember? I want to say it was Hyena remix.
Oh yeah, from San Diego. Yeah.
What was that?
You know, those guys, oh my God, like one time I went to their studio and they had a proper, you know, a lot of people from San Diego, they have proper setups, whether they're artists or they do any kind of, I don't know, but San Diego has a lot of great artist. And Hyena, like these guys had a great studio, and they were serious, like they were like hybrid pop rock electronic musicians.
Yeah, it felt like a killer legit rock song.
Yeah, and like I really regret us not pushing it further. Like I think at the time, like the distance kind of hindered it, and they were already kind of doing their own thing, and they would kind of step into my world and hit me up for stuff, and then they would disappear again. So it was like, they were kind of like in and out of my life, but looking back, like I'm like, man, we could have probably did something really cool with that whole sound,
Yeah, I rinsed the fucking bejesus out of that one in Jeep Music.
Yeah.
Was there any story to Jeep Music?
No, like it's just like I've always loved Master Ace, the rapper from New York.
Yeah.
And yeah, but Jeep Music was just me messing around with the acapella from that bootleg record.
Were you intentionally aware of that kind of upper register harmonic tone in the bass line? Was that just something that came out, or were you like, I want to put that in? Because when it drops, it's just like woo, woo, woo.
Yeah, one time I DJ'd in Detroit, and before I got there, they told me that they built the sound system inside the club because it's so massive, like they couldn't bring it in. So they built it within the club itself. And when I get there, once again, even before I get to the club, I could feel the bass and hear the bass. I'm like, holy shit. But Detroit, like, always killed it with the sound system for some reason. Like the Midwest just had people that were nuts about the sound. But but like with Jeep Music, when I played it, I was like, I thought to myself, this is why Lauren likes it, because because the bass, when it does those upper harmonics and stuff, like it gets in your head.
Oh, it killed me, man. Killed me.
So yeah, like I know what you're talking about, those upper harmonics. It's crazy.
Yeah, it almost like it felt emotional. It was always very solemn and somber, but like heavy and beautiful. And yeah, props on that.
Like that bass line, I might have ran it through the Roland. Like I used to have this black Roland SH09 keyboard that you could route sound through. Like a lot of the Roland keyboards didn't have that function, but this one did. And so I used to route my bass through it, and it would go through the Roland circuitry, basically.
Yeah. And
like it would add more oscillation and more stuff to it. And I think that's how I made it.
I can feel that in that one, that it was just like a magic. Like that's at least how it felt to me, that it wasn't like scientifically engineered. It was just like
it just happened.
Fucking RAW.
Yeah.
Yeah. Something caught my ear, I guess because we're almost at 2025, and you were saying 2005, 20 years ago, you were going through this kind of big shift.
I feel like I'm going through the same thing now that I went through in 2005. Something has to change, something like I need to do something else.
We've talked a little bit just about whether it's like not really feeling stuff that's happening now, or feeling like it's generic, or like when you mentioned your influences were like Kiss and the Police and shit. And I always like go back to how my favorite metal bands were influenced by like the jankiest 20-year-old rock music, and I never understood that. But sure enough, like when I was influenced by my shit, when it came out, it was definitely like a mutation, at least for my ears, because I would hear other things and think like, oh fuck, I wish that Black Sabbath was combined with that ambient techno loop, and in this drum circle I was in blah 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 and kind of forge a new thing. And for at least 5 years, if not 10, it's just seemed like endless recycling or re-impersonating sounds, and I don't know if it's because I just haven't stumbled upon this like micro scene of brand new shit. And I don't even actually care, because what I enjoy most for myself is just making, what I enjoy the most, and it doesn't need to be like, oh, is this groundbreaking? It's just like very, very heart shocker, very like, this is in the moment, this is the sound I want to play with.
Yeah.
But where are you at when you talk about, new paths or new interests or that transition?
Yeah, so like musically, like I've always done what I wanted to do, and So in 2023 is when I started to kind of slowly, just not really, it's not caring, but it's just kind of like slowly stepping away from the drum and bass community, I guess it was, and just in general, just kind of like stepping away, which is what I did before dubstep. But now, like, I find myself in that similar limbo where, like, I'm not connecting with what I'm hearing in the drum and bass world. Like, even though I like it, there's something in my gut where I feel disconnected, and I'm like, I don't know what it is. I'm just living in my own world, and you know, like, I could see that people are enjoying themselves, but like, I was really looking forward to doing shows with you.
Hell yeah.
You know, and like, that was going to be something different and something where I had something to look forward to that I didn't feel in the drum and bass world.
Yeah.
And so I just find myself kind of hoping, you know, for better days, you know, like I'm still like wishing you the best, you know, and like I'm like waiting for the day where you can make a comeback, you know. And
bro, I love you so much for saying it, and I just, from day one, you've just been such a brother, and it's just so supportive and kind and caring and conscientious and open.
Yeah, I mean, you know, it's because like me and my girlfriend still talk about like the cancel culture stuff. We studied it. We've listened to philosophers and psychologists who discuss it, and you know, because there's you know, like, you even find other versions of cancel culture within politics, and even the protests right now with the Gaza and the Israel stuff. You know, there's just a lot of people in the world who have all the time to just get on their phone and just fucking blab their fucking opinion out, you know.
Yeah.
But yeah, so like, for me, musically right now, I'm still me, but the DJ of, you know, like, it's just really weird. And it's not anything that's fun for me. Like, this is very challenging. Like, there's some days that are hard for me where I'm like kind of thinking, who am I? What am I doing? And then I have to remind myself that I chose to do this. You know, I chose to step away. So, like, I think I'm just going through like, you know, like a period of change, which is fine, you know, because
for sure,
change always leads to something that that's who you're going to be. Like, change leads us to the new us, you know?
Yeah, you go into winter and then you go into spring.
Yeah, so for me, like, you know, again, there's hard days, but then I also have been trying to meditate more and like center myself, and that helps a lot. Doing the gratitude, which, you know, you always hear, oh, be grateful and gratitude, but when you actually take the time to, you know, sit in your car and like say things to yourself, like, it works. It's crazy, you know.
No, 100%. I feel you so much.
Yeah.
And at any point, no matter how shitty things are, you can stop and just make an endless list of miracles that they're just sitting right here for you.
Yeah. And then also, like, I have kids, you know, so like, I always need to remind myself also not to get so consumed with myself and not to get consumed with woe is me. But right now, like, I'm like a hermit right now, but I think it's okay, you know.
Yeah, well, you know, you're incubating, and I know, you know, there's something to be said for really deciding to pick a side, which you did, just to be like, I'm not going to join, you know, this fucked up mob.
Yeah.
And, you know, you're talking about you and your girlfriend kind of thinking about cancel culture philosophically. You know, it's inherently human to be in conflict, to be at war, to be violent. And one form of cancel culture that is different from the second form, the first is kind of eradicating that which is unacceptable, and that I'm more in relationship to it. Like, if there's something wretched, say like the Nazis, that seems really appropriate. But where it gets so toxic and horrible is like in this situation, the whole electronic scene, at least stateside, you know, we were such a part of it, and the Bass Nectar community was so intrinsically at the center, and it was like watching people kind of turn on themselves during the pandemic out of this lunacy, just believing a few maggot trolls making up bullshit.
Yeah.
And it obviously, like, people like yourself, artists who have the integrity to be punk rock and be real, it's endlessly meaningful. And there's also all the dimensions of my own, the pain and the persecution and the suffering that I've gone through and healed through. But what I'm really focused on is the community, the hundreds of thousands of people who are so good-hearted and who want to celebrate. And before cancel culture, when the pandemic hit, I was not only really excited for just a change, some time off, but I expected when things came back, I was wrong, but my prediction was that it wasn't going to go back to that super American, like, overpriced, sold out, hyper big festival sponsored by Pepsi and Heineken type of shit, but that it would be more localized again, and it would be like a 300-person DIY party.
Oh, yeah.
And that didn't happen, and it was strange, and I think it was just cultural and generational that people kind of wanted to wait until they could go and attend to look at a stage and their, musical hero recorded or whatever.
Yeah.
And that's kind of the opposite of my passion. Like, I really want to recreate those, like, deep musical experiences that are shared by a tight, warm crowd.
Yeah.
That old school underground rave culture, and like, going to a party, not a show, and just sharing that kind of like vibration with people. And there's a purity and a simplicity to it. It's not so sensational. It's not so hyped up.
Yeah.
But it's really what I'm looking forward to do. And I know that you're in it for the ride, so I'm really excited about going into the future with you.
Yeah.
And dude, it's been a real pleasure talking to you and just getting a chance to dig in deeper, and I'd love to do it again soon.
Okay, cool. Yeah, man. Great talking.
All right, love you, man.
Love you. Bye.
All right, all right, all right, all right, all right, all right.